Welcome to Solve It Like a Marketer. I'm Stephen Hobey. Today I will be answering how to create an effective podcast for your business. If you like this video, please subscribe and don't go away. Now, in this video, I won't be delving into the technical aspects of creating a podcast. This could be from editing software you might use to choosing a microphone. Instead, I want to focus on the strategy and preparation needed for launching a successful podcast. Now, many of these tips can be applied to either an organization or you personally. So please make sure you stick around to the end of this video because I will be providing some helpful resources in the more technical areas to get you started. Now, podcasting is a great way to get your message out there. And the bonus is that it's much less crowded and competitive space than blogging. As of June 2021, there are just over 1.75 million podcasters, but over 600 million blogs. So in essence, creating a podcast allows you to reach a brand new audience. And what's more, you don't need to be an established content creator to become a successful podcaster. This is an excellent way to showcase your personality and knowledge in an entertaining way, showing that you are an authority on a particular topic. Now, depending on your intent, as an organization, your podcast can, say, drive traffic to your website or store. You can touch upon aspects of your business that you might not have a chance to in written or graphic format. Podcasts are also easy to consume. People can listen on the go, in the car, at the gym, or even at work. They can also choose their device, mobile or desktop. So where should you begin? Well, first, choose a topic. You want your podcast to be focused on a particular topic or niche. So the trick is to narrow in on something, but not be so narrow in focus that it doesn't have longevity. For instance, if you want to do a podcast on marketing, this is too broad and way too competitive to get noticed. So you want to narrow this. For example, marketing for millennials. Ultimately, you want to ask yourself, will this topic allow me to create 100 podcast episodes and more? Next, choose a name. So once you know your niche, it's time to choose a catchy title for the show. I suggest taking a look at other popular podcasts in your niche and see what others are doing. What makes their name appealing? How does it catch attention? There's a lot of flexibility here. So some titles are more descriptive in nature, say highlighting what the show is about, while others are just catchy and don't really link directly to the topic at hand. So be creative and have fun when brainstorming. What I do usually is I think about titling over a few days. Every time a possible title pops into my head, I write it down. I usually end up with 30 or so possible titles and then begin narrowing them down. So make sure you get some input from others to see what their impressions are. Show format. So with the format of the show, there are a number of aspects you need to consider. Style. Are you going to produce an interview format show? If so, will you have a co-host? Or do you plan to present solo? Length. These factors will have an impact for your show running time. So to be honest, there are 28-minute podcasts, 1-hour podcasts, or just 1 to 5 minutes in length. Ultimately, the length should be determined by content. The worst trap is to set a length of half an hour and find you're having trouble filling that time slot. So likely your content will become, in that case, a little stilted and meandering. So land on a length and stick to it. Format. So how does one episode roll out? In other words, pacing. Does it begin with a teaser and some intro music? Do you explain this episode off the top and then lead into an interview? Is there an ad spot midway through? There might be a call to action, like review us on iTunes at the end of the show with extra music. Again, take a listen to other podcasts out there and pick and choose what you like. No need to reinvent the wheel. Cover art. This is so important. Your cover art will show up on all the podcast platforms and social media. It's what first catches people's eye before the title itself. So there are a number of online services out there for creating podcast artwork if you aren't lucky enough to have a designer at hand. Music. I always enjoy this part because it's when your podcast is taking shape, and music allows you to further inflect personality into the show. The music choice should reflect the nature of your podcast. So in other words, is it hard-hitting news, humorous, or light? The music needs to work in tandem with your topic area, giving an impression of what's in store for the listener. Hosting platforms. So finally, it's time to choose a hosting platform. What's this, you may ask? Well, all podcasts are housed on their respective online platforms, and this platform will be responsible for disseminating your podcast to all the different listening apps out there. And it does so through your RSS feed. Your platform may also come with a website, which you can use to promote your podcast on social media. Now, I've given you some possible hosting platforms to choose from in the description below. Other suggestions. Now, these are the big pre-planning areas you'll need to tackle as you put your podcast together. But as I mentioned off the top, there's a whole other aspect to this that I didn't cover, and that's the technical stuff. You'll need to learn about editing software for sound, choose a mic, and configure your computer, as well as decide on where you're going to record, preferably somewhere quiet. So this is where YouTube is a fabulous source for learning more and getting best recommendations for equipment. You actually don't need to break the bank on this, but there are a few wise purchases, such as a podcasting microphone, you'll need to consider. Because of the very nature of podcasts sound, you want to make sure it's recorded and edited at a high level. You want to sound as professional as you can be. So let's say you've done all your planning and you're now ready to record. What do you talk about in this first episode? So it's so important that people get to know you and what your podcast is all about. You can even title this episode 0 if you want to just introduce your topic. If your podcast is 28 minutes long, this episode 0 could be 3 minutes long to act as a teaser for what's to come. You want to build expectation and excitement for your listeners. I would suggest scripting this one out so that it's tight and doesn't waffle too much. You need to catch attention in the first few seconds of the podcast and then hold people's attention. Having said this, you don't want to sound scripted, so practice, practice, practice. Practice until it flows and sounds natural. That way, when it comes to record, you're not reading, but referring to what you've written. Having said this, it's important you develop your tone and persona as a podcaster. You need to sound smooth and confident. If you're hesitant and nervous, then the listener will pick up on this and feel equally as uncomfortable. That's not good. So, do a few test runs. Record yourself and objectively evaluate. I know most people can't stand the sound of their own voice, but quite frankly, if you are going to be a podcaster, get over it. It's not about you, it's about your listener. So always evaluate objectively. See where there are areas for improvement, and that also goes for when you start officially putting content out there. It's so important to always be looking to improve. It is a journey for both you and your listeners. So I say enjoy the ride together. Helpful resources. Okay, so as I mentioned, I didn't cover the more technical aspects of setting up your podcast. So to get you going, I've included some helpful resources in the description below, including hosting platforms, podcasting mics, and suggested editing software. Have fun. If you'd like to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. You can also catch me on Instagram and Facebook for extra content, and you never miss a new episode. The links are below. I will see you every week with a new video, so please stay tuned, and together let's solve it like a marketer.